9:30 Eastern Time. Here's a live look at the White House at this hour. This week, President Trump calling for the federal government to take control of elections in multiple states ahead of this year's midterms. It comes as he is pushing the public to move on from the Jeffrey Epstein case, days after the Justice Department released millions of new pages tied to its investigation into the convicted sex offender.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else, really. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
And new this morning, 700 ICE agents are being pulled out of Minnesota after weeks of protests following 2 fatal shootings. I want to bring in CTV's U.S. political analyst Eric Ham now with more. Eric, as always, lots to discuss this morning. Let's begin with what we have just heard this morning from Tom Homan and the decision not only to start to have body cameras be mandatory for ICE agents, but there will be a pullback, according to Homan. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. We are hearing that 700 ICE agents are now going to be drawn out of Minnesota. And this comes as state and local officials have made an agreement with the Trump administration that they will now hand over many of those criminal immigrants who are currently in state and local detention facilities. They will now be transferred over to federal agents. And so that was the agreement that was made between the two. However, this is not to mean that what we're seeing in terms of these agents in Minneapolis or Minnesota will not continue across the country. In fact, we're learning that Ohio is perhaps the next place that we will begin to see these ICE operations taking place, particularly in Springfield and Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, I had also read San Diego as well. Let's move on now to Trump talking yesterday about it being time to move on from the Jeffrey Epstein story. And I believe in that clip, he also talked about there being conspiracy involving him. Do you think that he will get his wish, Eric?
Not at all, especially now that we know that both Bill and Hillary Clinton will be testifying before Congress on February 27th, specifically about their interaction with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we know both Hillary and Bill Clinton are lightning rods for the right, and they still hold a lot of sway in the Democratic Party. They are now also calling that for their hearings to be made public. And so we know that when they certainly do appear to testify, this is going to be must-see TV for a lot of Democrats and Republicans who always love to see the Clintons. The Clintons have always been people that Republicans love to hate. And so I think this only keeps the Epstein files front and center.
Also, Trump making news about nationalizing elections. Why is that so extraordinary to hear from President Trump to the point that there is pushback from even members of his own party?
Well, the Constitution, it's enshrined in the Constitution that states actually handle their elections. And so instead of having a national system, what the United States has is independent systems where each state independently runs their own elections as they see fit. And for the president now to be calling for nationalized elections, not just nationalized elections, but for Republicans to specifically run the elections, we are seeing a massive pushback. But also this comes on the heels, of course, as we know, of the Department of Justice that actually raided the Fulton County office, where you also had the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who was there for that raid by FBI officials. And so that has sparked concerns even from the ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee as to why the Director of National Intelligence is involved in something that is seen as clearly domestic. And so what we're seeing right now is Republicans who actually have legislation currently in the Senate calling for a proof of citizenship for those who vote in elections are attempting now to actually end the filibuster to help President Donald Trump get his wish. Now, as you say, there is still pushback from some Republicans, but we know that President Donald Trump has been pushing for this not only since he lost the election in 2020, but definitely since he came back into office.
Eric Ham for us this morning. Eric is our CTV News U.S. political analyst. Thank you so much for all of that.